Hello, Mr. Mack-Poole here, and today I want to talk about détente between 1969 and 1979. I'd like to start and just define what détente means. Détente means that there's been an improved in formerly poor relations. Okay, so there's been improvement in formerly poor relations. So some people compare it to a thaw when because you've got a Cold War, and so the ice is melting and it's not so cold, but that would then mean it was heating up, right? But no, it's actually things are improving. That's really what détente means. There's improved relations, okay? But is it just temporary? Well, you'll find it was, wasn't it? So let's have a look. What the causes? And again, this is a similar time to the Prague Spring. So you got the hippie movement. You've got an international movement for peace. And this is countercultural. This is against the prevailing mainstream culture. And the mainstream culture is the culture of the Cold War. That you have hawkish, aggressive elements in both the Soviet Union and America. And when we think of hippies, we really think of Americans because they had freedom of expression. But that undercurrent of yearning for peace was global. And people were scared, genuinely scared, of a global World War III with a nuclear Holocaust threat. And for that reason, and for the reason of the Cuban Missile Crisis, that genuinely scared people. It scared politicians and it scared the international population that life as we know it could come to an end. And for that reason, the two global superpowers look to improve their relations. Also, we've got some socio-economic reasons. In America, there have been a lot of riots based on, race riots. So nothing too different from today, sadly, in America. You would have thought that things could have improved over the last 40 years, but obviously not. But anyway, let's stay on history. So there were some race riots there. And there's also, so America was bogged down with its own social issues. And the USSR had a desire to improve living standards in their own country and therefore de-escalate the arms race. There was a feeling in the Soviet Union that they had achieved parity with the USA in terms of nuclear power, and therefore there was no real need to continue an arms race when they're just equal. So therefore, to improve the social and living conditions in the Soviet Union became a prevailing priority for Brezhnev, okay? And the Vietnam War America was really bogged down there as well. So I'm not making out that this period was one of complete peace between communists and capitalists, but I'm just saying for the Soviet Union and America, relationships did improve. Obviously in Vietnam, not so much, okay? But that's a proxy war. Let's focus on the main relationship. So how did this relationship improve? Well, SALT 1, Strategic Arms Limitation Talks 1. So there was a desire on both sides to limit the amount of nuclear weapons, and Brezhnev is the leader throughout this process, okay? Brezhnev was in power from 1964 to 1982. There are, however, different presidents, all right? So Brezhnev and Nixon agree on this, and they famously have a kiss. They kiss on each other's cheeks, which is a Russian greeting, which a lot of Americans were not happy about, by the way. But the high point of this, so that was from 1969 to 1969 to 72. It took 3 years to hammer out that agreement there of SALT 1. However, the Helsinki Accords in 1975 are really the high point of détente, okay? And the reason for that is that what happens is that there's basically three different baskets there. Now, basket one is borders. So the borders of Eastern Europe are fully accepted by the Americans. The Americans say, okay, we understand that those borders are very important to the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union was invaded twice, and therefore we're not going to contest those borders. Those borders are accepted. And that acceptance of those borders made the Soviet Union very happy. Also, basket two was an agreement for greater international cooperation. And this is really, I would say, personified, or I can't think of a better word, but the best example of this is the Apollo-Soyuz space mission where they shook hands in space. So that showed great international collaboration between the world's two superpowers. Also, there was now this basket three. I don't think it was so well implemented, but there was an agreement that would be freedom of speech. Now, obviously, in the Soviet Union, it's not very well known for its freedom of speech until Gorbachev came into power in 1985, where you had Glasnost and Perestroika. However, freedom of speech was an agreement. I don't think that the Soviet Union really were good for their word for that, but the first two, the borders and the Apollo-Soyuz mission, thumbs up there. Now, America also enjoyed better relations with China in ping-pong diplomacy. So China was another communist country. So you can see that America's tried to improve its relationship through playing ping-pong, space missions, through limiting their nuclear weapons. You can see there's a major shift from what was happening in the 1960s. If you look at the 1960s with a near war event with the Cuban Missile Crisis, this is a completely different atmosphere. Now, SALT II was supposed to be signed by 1979, and this was between Brezhnev and Carter. Now, Carter was the US president at the time, and he was seen to be quite a weak leader. There were a lot of international events going on. For instance, there was a US embassy was attacked by Iranians, and this made a lot of conservative, hawkish elements in America think that they need to stand up to the Soviets a bit more. And in fact, Ronald Reagan did pledge this in an American election in the 1980s, but that's slightly after this period. So the biggest undermining of the whole détente period is really the invasion of Afghanistan by Brezhnev's Soviet Union. And this is a massive miscalculation. This is a huge error made by the Soviet Union because this caused the Carter Doctrine. So Jimmy Carter, although known as a weak president, said, you know, if you go anywhere near the Middle East and the oil, basically this will lead to war. And you can see that relationships completely deteriorated again. And it really was like back to square one after that period. So the consequences were really that this was just a short-lived break. Okay, I know it's 10 years, but it's sandwiched between basically 20 years either side of very unfriendly relations. So it's a short-lived break sandwiched between two periods of hostility. Okay, and there's no genuine improvement between two opposed systems. The thing is that capitalism and communism are they're opposed, they're antithetical, they can't get on. Okay, they're opposite systems, and one cannot, you know, they can't coexist with each other. Okay, it's a bit like Harry Potter and Lord Voldemort. Okay, neither can live whilst the other survives. Okay, so one system would have to fail in essence. There's no genuine improvement between the two opposed systems. Was it just convenience because of a poor socio-economic situation of the 1970s for both the USSR and the USA? Was it just a marriage of convenience? And then once the USA felt it was back on its feet, that it was going to push against the communist system again. Okay, so quite an interesting period because it's so different from the rest of the course. And it's very important to remember these 10 years of détente.